Thank you for staying with us. Now, terrorism is a global problem. As a result, many countries continue to step up their security architecture to nip the activities of terrorists in the bud. One of the major ways that has been identified in curbing terrorism is cutting all access to funding for such groups, as the key enablers of violent extremism is access to finance and the ability to move money. Many developing countries like Nigeria still have some challenges with tracking money, heavily cash-based economies. Buying, selling, lending and borrowing very often occur directly with cash payments, leaving no paper trail and making enforcement of any regulation around monetary flows virtually impossible. Now, this together with the often porous borders and difficulty associated with patrolling these has meant that terrorist groups have been able to raise and move funds anonymously and often without leaving a paper trail. The African Center for Justice and Human Rights has expressed delight at the recent policy introduced by the nation's apex bank, that's the Central Bank of Nigeria, that asked the deposit money banks, non-financial institutions, and other financial institutions not to do business in crypto and other digital assets. Now, the ACJHR views this bold and courageous decision at this time of the nation's history as a welcome development. Now, according to a statement by its executive director, Chinwendu Nduka, we'll be moving on now to the conversation where we have our guests in the studio with us, security consultant Darlington Umoru. He'll be talking to us about this. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Good morning.
For years, the issue of Boko Haram, since 2009, the issue of Boko Haram insurgents has been, at the fore when it comes to when you're talking about insecurity in Nigeria. And one of the concerns many experts have is how to cut their source of funding. And we have seen measures the central bank put in place even before now. They try to push for the use of, to ensure that there are no cash flows within the country. And so the CPM pushed the campaign for cashless policy at some point. And now it is saying that reinstating its stance when it comes to crypto, saying that people shouldn't deal with cryptocurrencies because these are ways that terrorism is being financed. And some persons are for, others are against. I wonder where you stand with regards to this move by the CBN when it comes to trying to tighten the news around terrorism financing.
Well, where I stand is how to minimize the activities of terrorists in Nigeria.
Right.
And whatever it will take to achieve all of that will gladden my heart. My heart bleeds on a daily basis when I hear about killings at different parts of the country. On every day, you hear about killings by bandits, you hear about killings by Boko Haram, even though the last time Nigeria was rated the sixth, was it sixth or third for the sixth consecutive time as one of the most ravaged countries by a terrorist. And even so, the data they gave rather gave Nigeria a less amount of persons that have been killed since 2015. Remember that their data in 2015 recorded 5,000 deaths. And then between 2019, or the year 2019, it came down to 1,000 something. But all of that is reduced to killings by Boko Haram.
Right.
Not the entire terrorist groups. Well, some groups are yet to be branded terrorists. The bandits, I don't think they've been branded as a terrorist group. I don't know why and what is delaying it. But whatever the government will do to ensuring that the activities of these persons, these terrorists, are reduced. And it's no longer news that people are killed in this country.
Of course. We see reports on a daily basis.
We see gruesome videos every now and then. There was one I saw and I quickly asked, the group I belong, I quickly asked that, please don't post this kind of video again. They put me off. Now, don't forget that the issue of the BVN too was meant to reduce funding of terrorists.
Right. So they can track and trace.
But how much of that has been achieved?
That is the question. We're getting there.
Now, I draw your attention to what happened in UAE, where 6 Nigerians were actually arrested and prosecuted under their terrorism law, violation of their terrorism law. About $872,000 were transferred from UAE to Nigeria, to the terrorist group. And 2 agents of Boko Haram were said to have received those monies in Nigeria. And the persons who were arrested there were Nigerians. As I speak with you now, 2 have been sentenced to life imprisonment, and the other 4 have been given 10 years each imprisonment. How many of such persons have been arrested in Nigeria?
That's the question.
Now, if you want to talk about how terrorist groups are funded, you have to be very careful, because your judgment should basically be based on court's judgment. Who and who have been prosecuted for having been arrested for funding the terrorist group? You remember, I take you back again to several accusations and counter-accusations by politicians, having been pointing, accusing fingers at each other, particularly when you are no longer in government or when you're seen as a threat. But how many of these persons have been arrested? How many of them have been prosecuted? Until we have records, they remain speculations. But we know that if it comes to the West and America, they have what they term state funding of terrorist groups. If you want to look at Al-Qaeda, for instance, we know that there are records showing that Al-Qaeda was basically funded by Osama bin Laden, and some other monies gotten from the trade in arms, the trade in drugs, and then contributions by certain states. And America has also accused certain countries at certain times of funding terrorism.
Right.
And some of these countries have also pointed accusing finger at some other countries. You have America saying that Iran is funding terrorism. You have them also pointing accusing finger at India. They have also pointed accusing finger at some of the Asian countries. And vis-a-vis, those ones have also done the same thing. But here in Nigeria, the story is different. But we can only speculate because we know some of the areas that are suspected.
The porous borders, some have said the porous borders. We talk about the issue of kidnapping as well. Some have said perhaps that's another way they make funds.
You're absolutely correct, because the proliferation of small arms is done by illicit trade in arms. And then these are achieved through our porous border, particularly up north, wherein if you had visited any of these border points, you discover there are nothing to write home about. It's as good as not even calling them a better point. But even so, there's nowhere in the world, records and research have shown that there's no part of the world where you can completely police your borders. Even if you line up your custom agents, if you line up the number of custom agents we have in Nigeria now between Lagos to cover the 4 countries where we have our border points, both the legal and the illegal routes, there's no way they can cover them. But be that as it may, they have to do as much as possible to contain
because these are the efforts that will complement whatever the CBN is doing as well.
Very well. And then if you talk about the kidnapping, apparently you see bandits and Boko Haram demanding for ransom. Kidnapping is rampant now. It's gone beyond the northeast now, northwest, north central, down here. It started from the south and then moved over. It took another dimension when it got to the north. And right now, we hear about kidnapping and ransom being paid on daily basis, because what the security apparatus, have they been able to contain all of this? And then you tell me the Nigerian military for now is overstretched. They are brought into internal security. If there's robbery incident, they are called. If there's intercommunal clashes, you call the military, say, come on. Their security arrangements are supposed to be in different forms and shades. You have those who are supposed to be taken by the paramilitary organizations, and then you're supposed to have those taken by the military organizations. But right now, what we have is that the military is dragged virtually into every crisis. Today, beyond the kidnapping, you also look at robberies, bank robberies. These are some of the ways that have been alleged over time. You know, for instance, a town called Auchi was invaded by robbers who locked up the entire town. Once upon a time, they locked up the entire town, raided the banks, virtually all the banks in that town, took their time, and eventually left.
Right.
And so beyond that, the one you talked about just now was also trading on weapons, the ones that come in through the border. And then what about the illegal transfer? That's the type we had in the United Arab Emirates, where those 6 Nigerians were actually arrested and then prosecuted, and now they are serving jail terms.
Where the CBN comes in.
Yes.
Tracking and tracing.
What happened to the 2 agents, the Boko Haram agents who collected the money here?
Right. What have we seen from this end?
What have we seen from the part of the government? If you're tracking, if not for UAE, would we have had an idea that some persons were transferring money all the way from UAE down to Boko Haram in Nigeria? If not that those people violated the anti-terrorism laws of that country, and they made arrests of those 2, and then the other 2 who received, the other 2 Boko Haram agents who received the money in Nigeria, where are they?
These are the questions.
These are the questions that need answers. And then food supply. How do they get their food? Some of them, they go to communities, they go to markets, they get their food supply, they go to, how do they get their weapons? Some of these weapons they trade on. Beyond the porosity of our borders, we are aware of how they have invaded some barracks, police stations, invaded the armories where they stole and carted away the weapons in those armories. These are some of the ways these people are being funded. But right now, would you be able to pinpoint so far in this country against what we have heard, against what we have seen, all the counter accusations, how many have been prosecuted?
None that we can really pinpoint.
We can really not place our fingers on anybody now. So
and that is why the question of the sincerity of purpose of the CBN has come up when the memo went out, talking about tracking and tracing, because they say that issues like this, the cryptocurrency, is one of the channels used to fund terrorism. And people are questioning the sincerity of purpose. If they have really done much, achieved a whole lot with other measures they had put in place, if they have been able to track and trace, remember, you recall you mentioned the BVN, the cashless policy, monies keep flowing in and out. Is it such a challenge to track and trace, or is data management the issue here?
But security matter is very complicated. There are things you cannot discuss in the public when it comes to security issues. There are explanations government cannot give when it comes to security matters. Obviously, we must consider that if you know what security is all about. Now, for government to take on that decision on this thing that is bothering so many people now,
Crypto.
Yes, it meant that apparently they have had some wind of people using it. Of course, don't forget that it's an open trade in money, where you put your money and it doubles or it triples overnight and all of that. Beyond the fear of the government that it might turn out to become fraud at the end of the day, it gives some other people the opportunity to raise money, if you understand it. And so for government to come up with that decision, there are things the government cannot come out to definitely explain to you and I. Apparently, they say in every smoke, there is a fire.
Absolutely. And
so these are some of the measures. I don't think the way terrorism is ravaging the world now, you can completely stop it. But whatever you can do to contain or minimize the effect and the growth of terrorism in your country, you take, because the Constitution provides for you to do all of that. Yeah. America is concerned, you are concerned, your neighbors are concerned. The one in Nigeria now, you cannot really, in the last, as 10 years ago, we were talking about just Boko Haram. And then at another point in time, we were talking about headers. But today we are talking about bandits. We are talking about other groups. So what is happening? Boko Haram in itself is no longer one group. We are aware of all of that. Today, recently we discussed when the Kankara boys were taken, the Chibok girls were taken, okay? And at the end of the day, people say ransom were paid for these children to be gotten. I have always stood by that ground. Whatever it would take for you to recover children, who are the leaders of these countries of tomorrow, I don't care. Get those children out and let them go back to their parents. At the end of the day, do you know what it is now? Leah Sharibu, that is not bad. Do you know how much pains that has cost the parents of that young girl? Because they cannot really imagine or fathom what is happening to that girl where she is at the moment. And so when the Kankara boys were gotten, all came out. People said they were paid, government paid ransom. Government said they didn't pay ransom. But what was important was that the entire number came back. Zulum recently, last week, had a meeting with bandits where he had to talk with them to say, please, can you slow down your activities? What do we do? What can we achieve? And a lot of things came out of that meeting. And don't forget that Zulum was one of those who actually negotiated for the release of the Kankara boys. Yeah. How he did it and whatever happens, the important thing is that the boys are back and they are complete and their families are happy right now. But you know, Nigerian roads now, you cannot travel on them. The fear. That's why when you go to airports now, most of the local flights are overbooked. Right. You have to do or go the extra mile to be able to get a seat in a flight. Why? Because the roads are no longer safe. Terrorists have taken it upon themselves to raise money themselves. I don't think they're for now, they are waiting or looking at anybody to come and give them money. The issue of kidnapping is like a big business for them now. But has the Nigerian security apparatus been able to contain all of that? That's the question. Unlike what we see outside this country. They are doing their best, but are they being overwhelmed? Right. I think they are in a better position to give us that answer. Whether they have been overwhelmed for now, whether they have been overstretched for now. But for whatever I know, both the areas where the paramilitary security agents are supposed to handle, you find the military men are being dragged into all of that.
So there has to be complementary efforts, whichever way we are looking at it. The CBN on the one hand carrying out its own policies, coming up with its own policies, and then on the ground, agencies, security agencies, ensuring that things are put in place to ensure the safety of...
I think that is what we are seeing now, synergy you're talking about now. Yes. I think that is apparently what we are seeing. Don't forget that the CBN is an organ of the federal government.
Absolutely.
And that's the body that takes charge and controls the distribution of funds in the country. Okay? They are also called the bankers, bank, the commercial banks and all of them. So all the policies concerning money comes from there. And so if you want to control money, all these policies about the control of money in circulation are done by the CBN. But beyond what the CBN has done, people are clamoring that, are calling for the federal government to give further explanation. Some are saying that it's witch hunt and all of that. They are not really looking at the other side of it.
Wouldn't that help with building trust between the people and government? Because that is what they need, some level of, to know something moving forward, such that they work hand in gloves with the government, don't you think? I
don't even want to go there, because those handling public relations for this government, I don't think they've done well. I don't think they've done well, but apparently it's not an area where I like discussing. But if not, there's nowhere in the world where you take policies that will affect the people, and then you do not come out to really explain to them why those such policies were taken and convince them. Do you understand? Many now have invested in this crypto, whatever you call it, currency business, and they are coming out to say that they have made a lot of money. But the fear of the government, they are not really seeing it. Is the government really telling them what is involved and explaining it using the language they will understand?
That is it.
As government actually provided an alternative in all of that. People are suffering in this country. There's a lot of suffering. And people are dying on a daily basis. You want to talk about the corona issue that is hitting people so much now? Is it the issue of the terrorists and terrorism that we are discussing now that you want to talk about? Nobody sleeps now with his or her eyes, the two eyes closed. Because the fear is always there. Whether you are moving, you are always watching your back. Whether you're somewhere, you do not really feel safe. So what is happening? The government, those who are handling public relations for this government at this time, I think they need to do more. They need to do more by convincing the people. It's not all about putting out policies. Of course, policies are not meant for the government alone. They are supposed to be for the people.
Right.
And then when you push out such policies, what do? You teach the people what it's all about and convince them. You wouldn't be able to convince everybody, but even so, majority should be able to understand that this is why this policy is being carried out. Some are saying that I heard, but I don't want to believe it. Some are saying that it's a program at a point in time. Of course, you know.
In what way?
Well, trying to make sure that some people don't get much money to do what they want to do against 2023.
Right.
That's apparently what they are saying in politics. Of course, sometimes, you know, when money is mopped out of circulation, sometimes you say that it's because of your opposition and all of that.
All right, we'll have to leave the conversation here now, but tightening the news, ensuring that there is some sort of collaboration to really address these issues of insecurity frontally, or from what you have said, that is what we will be hoping to see, and that governments, those handling public relations, come out to speak to the people such that the people understand and they can work hand in gloves with government and also trust that this move by the government is in their interest.
They need to earn the trust of the people.
Right. Darlington Imoru, security consultant, thank you so much for your time on the program.
Thank you very much.